I gave this presentation, I walked into a room full of lawyers like yourselves, and they all were sitting there like this. Like, why do we need to do this stuff and all that kind of stuff? But by the end, you could see the ideas all going up, and I hope that the same thing happens here. I trust that the same thing will happen here. Let's see if I can trust that oh yeah, this was the original slide. This is the second slide, and this is me. Okay, so quickly, who am I and why should you listen to me? As Lily said, my name is Lisa Rothstein. I do a lot of things, but the longest part of my career was in the advertising business. I worked on Madison Avenue in big advertising agencies. So if you ever saw the program Mad Men, it's been off the air now for a couple of years, so it's not so easy to use it as a reference. But that really was my world. Only a few years later than that. So none of you is old enough to remember my big claim to fame in the ad business, which was for Hanes. Underwear, where there was a jingle that went, "Wait till we get our Hanes on you," and that was my big claim to fame in the advertising business. I worked on brands like IBM, Johnson & Johnson. What? You made up that jingle? Yeah. Wow. I didn't write the music. I wrote the words and all the song and all that stuff. But I did work with the music, with the Jingle House that wrote the music, and I actually am friends with him on Facebook still to this day. Yeah, so this is where I started off my ad career. I'm not going to spend too much time on my bio, so we have more time for all the content and everything. But and these are a few of the brands that I worked on. But here is the problem, that the old way of doing advertising for everybody, but not just for lawyers. I remember when lawyers weren't allowed to advertise on television, and when the first time you saw a legal TV commercial, it seemed so bizarre and it seemed kind of cheesy and just not right. And even now, you'll sometimes see, advertisements on TV for lawyers, and you'll go like, although I will say that I cannot shake that jingle for Solino and Barnes, injury attorneys, 800-888-8888. So it still works, right? However, it works that I remember them, but would I ever actually use them? I don't know. So the old way of doing advertising would be, you would be spraying and praying. You would just you put stuff up on the radio. You don't know who's listening to this. I mean, I can sing their jingle, but I don't need an injury attorney. I hope I never do, right? So you're not getting necessarily in front of the right audience. Number one, there's no value to the customer. It's just you telling them, hey, hire me. And unless they're right at that moment in need for an injury attorney or a divorce lawyer or something else, they're not going to remember that they heard that commercial while they were driving in their car or they were flipping through the newspaper, and the yellow pages and stuff like that, maybe because they're actually searching for it. And it's also, the other thing is, it's one-way communication. It's you talking at them. There's no dialogue, and there's no way for you to know what they really need. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that yet. It's not very credible, because when you're talking about yourself, when you're doing your own, your third-party validation is always better, right? So nobody believes an ad. And even though I was in the ad business, nobody believes you when you're doing an advertisement. They know you're trying to sell them something, so it's not really very credible. Content marketing actually fixes all of that. There's no ongoing relationship. You're in front of them once, and that's it. There's no connection afterwards, and there's no way for you to follow up with that person who might have seen your ad or might have read something or seen something that you did. And it makes you a commodity. You're just like everybody else. That guy and that guy and that guy and that guy. They're all the same. So there's really no way to differentiate yourself in the old ways of doing marketing. But the good news is that with content marketing, there's all kinds of things that you can do. Today, you can be your own marketing department. I don't want you to get overwhelmed by this list, but I wanted to give you ideas. And by the way, we'll get you a copy of these slides. So if you're worried about taking notes or anything like that, you'll get a copy. But there's so many things that you can do, even as a lawyer, and I recognize, I can hear the questions coming up in some of your minds where it's like, well, we're lawyers and legally we're not allowed to say certain things or do certain things. There are ways around all that we'll talk about later on, so it's specific to your profession. But I just want you to start thinking about some of these ideas, because any of you is eligible to do any of these things, because here's the thing. You're all younger than I am, but I just remember a time, and some people are still living in this world, where somebody else had to give you permission to publish. Like, you couldn't just decide, I'm going to put an article out, or I'm going to have like a television show, or I'm going to do something. Now everybody it's really self-publishing in every one of the media, podcasting, video, blogging, and things like that. We can all be our own publishers, and a lot of people are still waiting for somebody else to give them that stamp of approval, like I'm allowed to, to have a voice or an opinion. That's just not the way it is. So now you can be like a thought leader and do things like, you can, any of you in here can write a book, believe it or not. Even if you don't like to write, any of you in here could write a book, and you could do it in like a weekend and publish it on Amazon by yourselves, and then walk into your client meeting or something like this. I don't actually have one to give you right now. I should have brought some with me. But then, and give it out as if you're giving out a business card. It's not actually that hard. Things like articles where you can either guest blog on somebody else's blog or write your own. Things like a podcast is really your own radio show. So if you're in the car and you're listening to something like Handle on the Law or something like that, he's on the radio, but you can have your own podcast and be in people's pocket all the time. And the fact that you're up there being the one giving your views, that makes you the expert in the person's mind. Even though I know intellectually that you decided to do a podcast and nobody decided that you were good enough to do a podcast. If I'm sitting and listening to you and listening to your advice and thinking, oh, I should do that, well, that's a good idea, or whatever it is, now suddenly you're the expert. And then real media, real old-fashioned media, sometimes will call you and say, hey, we need a legal opinion on such and such a thing. Would you speak? Would you come to our come on our show? So these are all kinds of audio, video, all kinds of things that you can do. So here are the reasons why, my top 10 reasons why you want to be doing content marketing in your business, whether you're in any business, but especially in yours. You want to claim your expert status, or somebody else will, because just the fact that you may, I'm going to ask everybody like what their practice is in a second, but why don't I do that now? Why don't I go around the room and ask everybody like what's your area of practice? I'm sorry.
Business and real estate. Business and estate planning.
Business and estate planning, like I die and where's my money go? Okay, yeah, okay. Just checking. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Business transactional and a little bit of estate planning as well.
Okay. Family law, like divorce and child custody and stuff like that.
Business and real estate litigation.
Okay.
Criminal defense and transactions.
Okay.
Real estate business transactions.
Okay, so that has to do with like buying and selling homes and things like that. Okay.
Contracts, different.
Okay. So so the thing is that any of you could come out and be like the person who like for family law. I mean, if you decided to have a podcast about just telling stories, they don't have to be about real people, or you could just change their names, about how this person got through the situation and what happened. I'm very upset because the woman I use as a virtual assistant, who's a good friend of mine, I was on the phone with her yesterday, and we were supposed to have a meeting, and I said, well, I mean, I know you probably can't meet me in Dallas in August because I know you have the kids to. She said, well, actually, right now I don't. And it was the saddest thing, when she that's how I found out that she either lost custody or her husband got something. You know what I mean? So there are all kinds of stories that you can tell. People love stories. So I was one of these slides. I'm not sure if I have it, but. If somebody goes on YouTube looking for family lawyers in San Diego, and they go on Google and they look for family law in San Diego, and you come up and you have a series of YouTube videos with like little tips about, when should you start planning for this or that or the other thing, and what if you're thinking about divorce, or what if you have children, or what if. I mean, they can be hypotheticals, and you can still say these things. It's still not legal advice, and you could say at the top, this is not legal advice, blah, 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 whatever disclaimer you have to do. But if I see you, doing that, then suddenly it's like, and first I get to know you. So that's the other great thing. You get to be seen as a giver, not somebody who's just looking for clients, but somebody who's giving useful information and advice. It makes it easy for people to refer you because they're like, oh, hey, there's this guy who does estate planning, and I know you're looking to do a will. I saw this guy. I saw him give I heard him on a podcast. He was really great. You should definitely call him. Suddenly you're someone that they know, like as if they met you, which is pretty cool. You build relationships in what they call KLT, or know, like, and trust, over time. So everyone knows, it's a little cliche, that people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. Well, how can they know you if they've never met you? How can they like you if they don't know, like, what you're like? How can they trust you if you're just another, person out there trying to grab their business? And you may know this. I actually think lawyers are awesome, and I almost wanted to be one myself. But I have to say, I'm astonished at how pejorative some of the things people say about lawyers out there. So you don't arrive in the marketplace with a huge level of people saying, oh, I love lawyers, I trust lawyers, So the more you can do to counteract that in a proactive way, and there's no one stopping you. You can leverage your time, because when you do something like a video or a podcast or a blog or a book, you're doing it once and many people can see it. Instead of always having to be one-on-one with people for them to meet you, you can they meet you. They feel like they've met you, even if they haven't met you, and you're just one person, but you could, multiply that contact to, potential thousands of people. A lot of this stuff is kind of like, like obviously, but people really don't think about it. You get to help and serve more people, because if you have, ideas and tips and things like that, I know I clip when I'm doing something or I'm having a problem, I go to Evernote and I clip all kinds of articles about it, and, one of them might be yours. My mother-in-law right now is just started chemotherapy this week. I know she doesn't have a will, so maybe I'm calling you. And there's a lot of stuff. Now I have a problem. So now I have an issue. So now I'm going to go out looking for somebody to help me solve my problem, for my husband, because he's like all upset, so I'm doing like the research stuff for him. Now I'm looking around. Who's in San Diego? Who can help us with this? And that's when how can they find you if all you've got is like, maybe you can find your website, but it's better if you're out there giving advice as well. This may not apply to you, but it's possible that you could make more money. A book is not a way to make a bazillion dollars, but if you had, and I know it's different in the legal profession, but there's probably something that some of you could do where it's like a workbook or downloadable forms or something like that, where people could plan out their own, like an estate planning guide or a tool or some kind of a piece of software or an app or some kind of a thing that you could create that would help them, like a calculator or something like that. And a lot of these things are free. You can get them for free online, but some of them, some of them you might be able to charge for. So it's a possibility. And this is the most important thing for me, and I know that Lily hears me. It's like a broken record. You want to grow a database of prospects, because you never know when somebody is going to need you, especially when it's something like, no one calls a lawyer just to chit-chat. It's because when they need something, something's happening in their life. But that moment might not be right now. So, for example, I don't know your name, but I'm sorry, I should have asked everybody's name. Marisa. So if I'm like, I may not be looking to buy or sell a house like today, but I'm thinking about it. So if I find you online because I've been searching about like, what are the home prices in such and such an area, or like, what should I do before, how should I prepare my house for sale or something like that, and I find an article that you wrote, it would be great if there was a way for you to follow up with me later, for them to be able to find my way back. I want to find my way back to you at the moment when, okay, now I really need the help. But I read that article. Who's that person? If there are ways that you can kind of stay in contact with people by, for example, if I went to your website and you had that article, and it's like at the bottom it said, hey, download this as a PDF, save it for your records, click here, and then there's a box opens where I have to give my name and email to get that as a PDF now you have my name and email. Hey, I'll send you real estate tips, over time, and then, hey, by the way, when it's time for me to actually sell my house, that nice lady who's been sending me all these tips, and also I have her article that I cut out myself. So I've already basically said yes to something that you offered me. That's the first transaction, even though no money changed hands. So everybody here who cares about marketing should grab a book if you don't already have it. It's an easy read called Influence by a guy named Dr. Robert Cialdini, Cialdini. It's a classic, and he basically gives a bunch of different principles of persuasion and marketing. It actually might help you a lot in your work as well as your marketing. One of the things that he talks about, I don't remember what he calls it, but people don't like to contradict themselves. So if they've said, yes, I'm interested in this topic, yes, I'd like that article, they're not going to say no when you continue to send them stuff, and they're not going to say no necessarily when, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like I already accepted something, so for me to say, well, I'm not interested in hearing from you ever again. Well, that's kind of strange because that kind of thing. Content allows you to do that. Yeah, and when you're out there exhibiting your thought leadership, it's easier to get found by other people, including the media. So when you see some guy on like a morning talk show talking about estate planning or talking about family law or talking about whatever, and you're like, how did he get that gig? Who's he? Or who's she? Well, the media is lazy. They look around online just the same as everybody else. They say, oh, look, here's a guy who wrote an article about that exact thing that we're talking about. Let's call him and see if he'll come on our show. That's how it works. But if you're not out there being a thought leader, then they can't find you that way. And the number one reason that you should be using content, this is a big drum roll, to grow your business is, guess what? It's free. This is free. Advertising and all this other stuff, it used to cost so much money, and it didn't even work that well. And this is something that all you have to do, it's not so easy because you still have to get yourself to do it. It's like working out. You don't get the benefits unless you actually do it. But no one can stop you from doing it. And you just be, so why don't more people do it? Why don't more people do it? Because part of it is, well, it's so easy. Anybody could do it. So why should I be the one to do it? And then, oh my God, it's so hard. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to say. Why should anybody listen to me? I'm not, I'm nobody. And that's where people get in their own way. Here's the problems. Here are the excuses that I hear. I don't know what to say. What should I write about? What should I blog about? What should I podcast about? I'm not techie. Oops, sorry. It's one slide, not many. I'm not techie. I don't know how to use. I don't think that's probably the problem of anybody in this room because I talk to some people who are a little bit older, shall we say, who are just like, oh, they don't know how to turn their computer. I don't know if anybody in here feels that way, but I hate to write. I hear that a lot. You don't really actually have to write. You can just, these days, I don't even write. I talk into my phone. I let it transcribe it for me while I'm out walking my dog. I do it in Google Docs. I get home, I open my Google Drive, it's right there, edit, put on the blog, done. How hard is that? Okay, it's not hard. I don't have the time. Well, I just showed you how you could have the time. I actually wrote a blog while I was driving here, talking into my phone until Elise called me and interrupted my moment. That stuff won't work in my business. I heard all the time, my business is different. People don't do that in my business. I talked to somebody yesterday who one of my clients that I'm helping with her webinar who does a whole thing about marketing to millennials. And she helped a guy who has a security business, like security guards. Like, what does that guy write about or talk about, A while back, she was working with this person, and he said, I have no idea what to write about. And then she's like, well, why don't you talk about, and then she got him to write about like security issues or how to protect yourself when you're traveling because Kim Kardashian had just had that whole thing happen to her in Paris and everybody was talking about it where like people broke into her suite or something and stole all her stuff and duct taped her to the wall or whatever they did. So he basically hijacked that news story and talked about, security on the road or something like that, like while you're traveling and how to take care of yourself and whatever. I mean, it was a great idea. People found his blog or whatever it was that he did because they were searching for about the Kim Kardashian story, and suddenly he's a big expert about how to not get mugged while you're traveling, how to not get robbed while you're traveling. And it was an interesting article. People read it, and they weren't necessarily interested in security company, but they're interested in that idea. Like, how does it, yeah? Go on.
So the idea is, if you hear something like that creates some buzz in the news, then maybe try to think of like the legal angle of that. Or...
Absolutely. Actually, anybody who wants to jump in and interrupt, go on ahead, because otherwise, if you wait for me to take a breath, you're going to be waiting a long time. But that's actually really good. That's one good strategy to help you come up with ideas and also to have people actually look at what you're saying. Of course, the downside of that is the upside is also the downside. The upside is it's topical, it's timely, and people are searching on it. The downside is it has a short shelf life. Like, no, who's searching on Kim Kardashian in Paris right now? Nobody. But the fact is that anytime something does happen, if you come out and you have an opinion about it, suddenly you're like the tastemaker, like you're like the person who's already on TV having an opinion about this topic. So when I see, because I'm interested in branding and advertising and stuff like that, when I see a big brand fail, number one, I do have an opinion. I have an opinion about that, and then but the idea is to go out and express it in public. So I remember there was I did a blog about this, and I did a whole rant on social media about it too, that there was a company that did, was sending large files. It used to be called You Send It. And for some inexplicable reason, they changed their name to Hightail. What does that even mean? I mean, I was so angry, maybe angry, you know? It's like they had a brand that you actually understood what it meant, and now you have another name that doesn't have anything to do with sending anything. It actually means to run away fast, to escape from something bad, hightail it out of there, like, oh, let's get that, like, cheese at the cops, you know? That's what it means to me. And I think that they were worried that the people thought that their service was too slow, so they wanted to do something that said fast. All I know is they probably paid who knows how many thousands of dollars to some marketing firm to come up with that genius name, which had so many downsides. And besides, nobody knew that they were the same company. They kind of totally threw their brand equity in the toilet. Anyway, all the stuff I just said, I put that in a blog, or I put that in a Facebook post or something like that, and suddenly people are paying attention to me because I have an opinion. So yeah, that's a really good way. Just look around and look at the news. Just search around and see like what's happening, what's trending now in that has anything to do with what you're doing. It doesn't have to be that related, peripherally, And even as just a human being, do you have opinion about something, that has that could have something to do with what you're doing, like in estate planning, anything that's happening with taxes, is there going to be a death tax? Is there not going to be a death tax? All that kind of stuff. Like you don't have to have a legal opinion about it, but what's your personal opinion? And how should